Thank you. Sorry about the delay. We were in an extremely long executive session, as I think you know. So I thought we could start just by doing a quick round of introductions before we dive into the subject of tonight, which is annexation. But this is our first time getting together in person, so yay. Hey, thank you for making the time. I'm Mayor Rogan. I think you all know, and we'll go this way.
I'm trustee Edding, first term. Have been on the PCDC for a while though, prior to this.
Right, and I'm Tanya Dati and liaison to the Housing and Human Services Commission and the Economic Vitality Commission.
I'm Ted Elson, first time too, as a trustee. I am on the Eco Advisory Board and the Sustainable Futures Commission.
Great, Amy Schwartz. I'm a relatively new, couple months in commissioner on the PCDC.
Neil Evers, Vice Chair, PCDC.
Or you Joyce?
We know you.
Half an hour speech.
Relatively new commissioner.
David Hamrick, I'm not relatively new. PCDC.
Debbie Scott.
Dave Kimmett, planner. How do I do this, trustee?
Glenn Bellman, trustee. I may talk too much, so you might have to tell me to shut up.
And I am your trustee liaison.
And Mayor Pro Tem. And back there we have Brandon Dittman, our attorney, who I think everybody
Brandon.
knows, and Administrator Simonson. And thank you to Victoria and Dolores for the food. I really appreciate it.
Well, we worked all day.
I know you did. I know you did. So this is, we're supposed to have 2 joint meetings per year. This counts as 1, obviously, so really excited to get this back on track and to be able to meet in person. I think it's great. And tonight's topic is annexation. So we're going to talk about the annexation process, and by we I mean Planner Kimmett, and then get an update on the Martin parcel annexation.
Right.
So I will, if you're done eating, I'll go with you.
All right. I forewent eating, so I didn't have barbecue sticking out of my teeth because my teeth, I don't know what happens when I eat anything, but I have food magnet teeth. So to spare everyone an already ugly face, I didn't want to make it uglier. Okay, so let's talk about annexation. And yep, it is up on the screen. And presentation. Full screen. All right. You see it now.
I think so.
Yeah, all right. Went defaulted to Google. Okay, so this joint session, thanks everyone for coming today, because this is a relevant topic given that we have one active annexation application being prepared, which will be before both bodies politics soon. The Martin parcel, as Mayor Rogan mentioned, and we have other potential annexations, whether it's in the interests of the town to think about annexing, or we've had landowners approach us in my time here to talk about, hey, we'd like to become a part of this exciting burgeoning metropolis. How can we do that? And there is a process, both the local process and the state process, that we have to abide by. Some of which the local process anyone here tonight doesn't feel comfortable with how that is, we can always potentially change it. There are some things, including one particular standard I'll talk about that I do think actually need to be changed. Okay, so let's take a look. The first slide that you might have seen earlier when you had the chance to look through your packets is the basis of bearing under Colorado annexation law. So how many people here can name who the governor was in 1965 in Colorado? I remember back in 65. Raise your hand.
Governor Love.
I wasn't
Love.
even born
Someone
then.
said Love. I heard Love.
gosh.
Was it Love?
It was Love, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
I remember that from kindergarten, because we went to go visit to the state capitol.
Wow.
Nice, makes my night.
I have a sticker for you.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
Um,
Kidding?
So yeah, he's actually one of the more famous
You're
governors in Colorado's history. He was governor for quite a long time. And anecdote, he became the energy czar in the Nixon administration during the Arab oil embargo. So he resigned his governorship to go do that. Okay, why I mention that is because our annexation law dates from 1965 when he was governor. And it hasn't really been changed too much since that time. There's been a few modifications, I think, in the 1970s, but for the most part, this is where we, not just we in Lions, but all jurisdictions go by. Is this law, which is long, Colorado Revised Statutes 3112, 101, and et sequentia. The big three tests of any annexation must meet those 3 bullet points. One of those 3 bullet points. One, the members or the residents of an area can approve it. So an annexation has been approved by the majority of landowners and the registered general electors in the area proposed to be annexed, or the annexing municipality has received a petition for annexation signed by more than 50% of the landowners who own more than 50% of the area that is proposed to be annexed. Kind of complicated there. Or last, the area is entirely surrounded by or solely owned by the annexing municipality. The Martin parcel fits into that last one, and we have some others that fit into the other 2. And if anyone has questions along the way, raise your hands, yell out, throw some food at me. Another big component of the annexation, I guess, rigor that must be followed is it needs to meet the 1/6 contiguity rule. So you can't be annexed into a town, let's say somebody who lives on Steamboat Valley Road, 2 miles up, says, we want to be annexed into the town of Lyons or a group of residents.
Get in touch.
Yeah, you can't just annex in because you want to. That's called leapfrog annexation, and that did happen in the past in Colorado. There is a workaround with this, something called flagpole annexations, which are allowed. And we'll talk a little bit about flagpole annexations, but it's generally frowned upon to go about that route. It doesn't serve a wise land use standpoint of annexations. We've done it ourselves in the past. We have a flagpole annexation that everyone is aware of, which is where the public works facility is. We follow along US 36, Highway 66 to get to that point.
Follow our railroad.
The railroad, right? So we meet that 1/6 contiguity. So by 1/6, that means that if you measure the perimeter of the area to be annexed, all sides combined, there must be 1/6 of that distance proximal to the existing town boundary to meet that standard. Okay. So the 3-mile boundary, everyone's seen this slide before. This is rehash. What's the 3-mile boundary? What does that mean? The 3-mile, anyone here know what that means? Recall what that means?
Lions.
Dave Kim, a teacher asking questions to the class.
The Lions planning area.
What's that?
The Lions planning area.
The Lions planning area, yeah.
3-mile planning,
The
3-mile planning, that's the,
3-mile planning area, right?
as opposed to be careful as to not the town boundary or not the.
Or the planning area that is the Lions planning area from our 2016 plan. It's kind of a combo of those. So the 3 mile boundary, remember, is a legal component where every municipality in Colorado enjoys that benefit and also burden of understanding land use within 3 miles around it.
Like an area of influence.
It's your area of influence, right? It's the orbit in which you have the ability to kind of think about how your municipality will grow. So this is wrapped into our comprehensive plan. It is something that we're supposed to update every single year, which we haven't historically, but we are supposed to update the Colorado Department of Local Affairs every year with a new 3 mile plan. And that could be, we say, yeah, it's the same one as last year, but every year we're supposed to do that. It will change slightly, especially if we approve the Martin parcel annexation. We'll bump out just ever so slightly. So the map will actually change a little bit. Anyway, this is where we can contemplate what we would like to see. And this also parlays into our negotiations with Boulder County for our intergovernmental agreement. How does this have to do with the intergovernmental agreement?
There are limitations within the Boulder County IGA related to annexation
Right.
and other provisions.
And other provisions, exactly. Thank you, Chair. So typically in Colorado, a municipality can annex anywhere within this 3 mile boundary as long as it meets that 1/6 contiguity standard. Lyons, Boulder, Longmont, Erie, Lafayette, Louisville, any of the pertinent jurisdictions in Boulder County that are members of intergovernmental agreements or the super intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County don't have that, because we have for decades signed into an agreement whereby our land use is constrained a bit more. And we do that because we kind of like the idea of distinct communities and spaces between them.
Open preserves open space.
It's a way to preserve open
Open
space.
space and natural habitat.
There's a whole host of reasons why
Yeah,
we've agreed to that since 1978.
infrastructure.
So, yeah, so we don't have, we have kind of a flipped way of the county and municipality relationship. That said, within 3 miles, we still can, we still enjoy that area of influence where we can better understand where we would like to potentially annex. Okay, now the town of Lyons, we have our own municipal annexation rules, just like every jurisdiction, that specify the process by which an annexation happens. And there's a lot of documents that need to be provided by anyone who would like to annex. If you've had a chance to look at chapter 15 of the Lyons Municipal Code, it's decently long, and most of it makes sense. We have some unique attributes, including the need to vote for an annexation that's greater than 5 acres. That's not something that's in Colorado revised statutes. And that being 10-acre rule for the eastern corridor. If a parcel is, just to explain that further, if a parcel is 5 acres or greater, or a combined set of parcels by 5 acres or greater within the general area of Lyons, it has to go to a vote of the people in order to be annexed. And if it's in the eastern corridor, it's that same rule as 10 acres.
And so is that Clerk Vasquez, is that a special election that has to happen?
When there's a petition presented for an annexation,
Yeah,
yes, if it can't be piggybacked on top of a regular election, we'll have a special election.
okay.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, special elections typically cost about how much money?
Well, the last one we had with Boulder County was in the ballpark of $9,000.
For a special election. So in terms of timing, the more we can convince folks who would like to annex to time it
Elections, yeah,
on a normal election cycle, that's good.
yeah,
And probably makes less work for you.
right.
Yeah.
That said, like for someone who's really intent on annexing and they have the potential to make money that would make $9,000 seem like nothing, they can do it. So if you don't want to wait, say we don't, something comes into us now and they don't want to wait until the next general election,
But they can pay for the election.
Yeah.
they would have.
Oh, they can.
Yeah.
They
they
can.
ask them.
Yeah, they pay for it.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I thought we paid for it. Okay.
Yeah, we-
The price has doubled in the last few years. And how does that cost, or how does that compare to the cost of a regular election?
Well, I was gonna say it's probably right about up there because we have to contract with Boulder County, ordering supplies. I think the regular election was somewhere in the ballpark of 6 to 6.5.
But we have to do it both ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
so the more ballot questions we can get on one ballot,
Right.
right?
Can I ask one other question? I've heard in the past, a couple mayors have brought up that probably could be challenged in court, that vote, that it's not really strong legally. Have you ever had any thought about that? Do you think it's fine?
The requirement that they go to
You vote,
an
yeah.
election, I mean, a lot of people have that restriction. I don't see how it could be.
Okay.
Or I don't think that is.
Okay.
Because, and that's because we can have restrictions higher than the state.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
We always do have restrictions that are.
Yeah.
They're higher than the state, you take it below.
But that's a great question. I hadn't thought about that. So, the second major bullet point on here, if you take a look at that, this is, I just mentioned, there's a provision in our annexation regulation that I think is a bit onerous. And it's that a professional land surveyor must attest to the 1/6 contiguity rule. So every annexation has to meet that. That's state law,
State law.
but
Oh, it's,
we require that a professional land surveyor has to attest to that 1/6 annexation. So an example of that right now is happening with the Martin parcel, that we're having to hire a surveyor to attest to the 1/6 nexus. And that's a cost to the town, and it's a cost to any annexation. Right now, it's a cost to the town because it's our own annexation. I can do this via GIS. And
well, now you
say-
can, that code was written.
Yeah,
That's
it was before
Yeah.
Google Maps.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can modify it. Yeah, now you can do it really easy on.
Yeah,
But that practice is extremely common as part of annexation. It's not something that's unique to Lyons. In which every annexation plat you see has a surveyor doing the calculation on the plat.
Could you tell us the approximate cost of that land surveyor?
It's going to be about 18.
Okay, so it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide. So, this is another image you've seen before. This is our 2012 IGA with Boulder County. And I bring this up tonight to emphasize the potential annexations. Because we have, if you recall from our IGA, the ability to annex in areas in this map that are yellow. So anything yellow is our municipal influence area, also known as primary area. So in theory, under the standing IGA, anything in Apple Valley can be annexed. Anything in this County Road 69, Old St. Vrain Road area can be annexed. Anything along Highway 36 and going easterly to the eastern St. Vrain planning area could be annexed.
And that's the flagpole right there. With the-
This is the flagpole area right here. Anything that's in green are areas that we agreed to in 2012 that are considered rural preservation. So we agreed with Boulder County that we would not annex these areas.
The green is, okay, non-annex. Okay,
These can change. It doesn't have to be this way. This is what we agreed to at that time, and we can move to change any of these, including if we wanted to take some of the yellow out and migrate those to the green rural preservation, or vice versa, consider areas that are green and make them yellow.
Now, they're annexing them, but they're not. So they're not necessarily in the town limits, and the town isn't responsible for maintenance on all those green areas, are they, or? something?
No, because they're not annexed.
They're not annexed, okay, so Boulder County assumes responsibility for maintenance management, that's what I'm going with that.
Anything jurisdiction.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. There's one discrepancy in this map, and it's one that, we had a meeting last week with, Boulder County Commissioner Martin Lachine, I always say.
Marto Locheman.
Sorry. And planning staff from Boulder County, as well as the Boulder County attorney. This parcel here, which is the Boone parcel, as we call it, owned by the Boone family, on one map is designated as rural planning, rural preservation, sorry, and on another map is designated as municipal influence. So that's unfortunate that there's that discrepancy, and it's a parcel that has the ownership has come to us and mentioned they might like to be annexed. Under our current agreement, if this is correct, it's actually off limits, but we already put it out there that we'd like to, in this first meeting, that we'd like to have this be designated yellow for municipal influence area. Anyway, these are things to think about, where we would like to potentially annex in the future, or change our ability to annex, I should say. That's it. That's the key clarification. It doesn't, just because it's yellow doesn't mean we're going to annex it. It means we have the ability to do so. And just to squelch any worry that any of your constituents may have. Oh, geez, you guys are going to annex all the way up here in, at the intersection of the north end of Apple Valley Road and Highway 36? No, that's not in our plans right now at this time, but under our current agreement with Boulder County, we could potentially. Okay, so some ideas that are on the radar for annexation, and this is a map from that meeting last week with Mayor Rogan and Town Administrator Simonson and myself, and the Boulder County officials and staff. These are areas that could potentially be considered for annexation.
And David, if you don't mind,
Sure.
just real briefly, I want to just make everybody aware that the timing of the initial IGA discussions and our discussion as a board regarding this topic, the timing was a little screwy. So we had the meeting before we had our conversation. So this is by no means a final notion. This is something that the board and the PCDC will talk about. I don't particularly have a schedule for that because we're still working out the schedule with Boulder County in terms of the negotiations, but I just don't want anybody to think that this is a done deal. This is what we've decided and this is what we're asking for, just to be super duper clear about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, these are people that have either already inquired about annexation or that have been brought up over the last 10 years as, oh, why don't we add, just different areas that are on our radar. Really, seriously, just that.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And will you be able to speak to the motivation of those property
We're
owners?
gonna go through one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one is the easiest one, Martin parcel. And I will be presenting a little bit more after this general annexation presentation on the Martin parcel. So I won't talk too much about this one right now. But this one's hot and heavy and getting pretty close to coming before the PCBC and then the Board of Trustees. Being a municipally owned parcel, it doesn't go through quite the rigorous process as other annexations do. And that's per both Lions Municipal Code and state law. There's special considerations for town-owned properties. The Shady Lane parcel. So here's Highway 66, US 36. This is this is in the eastern St. Vrain planning area. Our town boundary is in blue. And this is outside of that. So how can we annex here? Because it doesn't meet that 1/6 contiguity rule. Flagpole.
Probably,
Or potentially other annexations. Now, if you can annex if you have the consent of other landowners in the area, a bigger area than a flagpole. But there is a potential for a flagpole annexation. As Administrator Simonson mentioned before, this flagpole annexation happens because of our town-owned former railroad right-of-way. And that continues, that town-owned former railroad right-of-way continues, I believe, until this point. So we can potentially have a flagpole annexation that would meet the 1/6 contiguity standard.
So David,
Yeah.
the owner of Shady Lanes in the last 8 years has approached the PCDC, I believe twice, about annexation. But both times he was really kind of working with the assumption that, okay, I annex and now the town will improve my roads, improve my sewer system and do all of this for me. He really didn't have an understanding that, you know, when you annex, at that time, you got to incur all the costs.
He doesn't say that, where do those costs come out?
Yeah, and so at some point, I hope we talk about what is required by the town as far as infrastructure before they annex or during the process of annexation.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people assumption they're going to get free goods.
Yeah.
Taxpayers when they annex.
Yep.
So, and it's doesn't ever seem to get resolved.
Yeah, it's a great point, Trustee Evans. So, the latest conversation, the only conversation that I've had with the owners, which happened a couple months ago with Administrator Simonson and I, that didn't come up, that the town is going to be providing everything and everything's going to be great. You can just skate away. We have been working, I think not sure if everyone here is aware, but we've been working with Boulder County Health and Human Services Department and Code Enforcement, which is an arm of community planning and permitting, to try to come up with a possible solution for this. Because it's a kind of intractable problem here. The land, they are under contract. Not under contract. They are listed for sale. They're not under contract. They're listed for sale. It's not public on the MLS yet because the listing agent doesn't feel comfortable with having it listed formally so that it's public facing until the property's cleaned up a bit. So the owner is working on cleaning up the problem areas that they can. At the same time, code enforcement is working with the landowners on the same strategy to get this cleaned up so that it's safe for the current residents and could potentially lead to a sale. Now, this leads from Boulder County because this is outside of our jurisdiction. Yeah. We are waiting for that. We're also hoping, for as we always are, for potential finances to avail themselves to make this a worthwhile endeavor. And the question is why? Like, why are we interested in annexing it? There's a lot of people who live here who work in the quarries. As what we know now is that there's 37 permanent residents here. So that's not seasonal residents that come during the summertime and double the population. And these people are important for Lyons' economy. So we would like it if they didn't have to leave, but there's a whole host of violations here going on, whether it be septic violations or housing standard violations. So this is a tricky one. But if things work out in the end and we can have a proposal that works, this could be great. It could also be potentially commercial area, and which is super important for any rationale in annexations, because commercial taxation tends to pay for itself, whereas residential taxation tends to not. So we're looking at different opportunities. There's also the protections that go along with the mobile home park under state law. So there's a lot that has to happen here before this becomes formally into our sphere to be annexed, but it's one that's there.
Dumb question, but.
Sure.
We just said that residential annexation doesn't pay for itself, so why would we be having this discussion?
In the sense of that, they are important to the economy of Lyons. And yeah, and the ability, because it is a single parcel.
I'm not talking about Shady Lane, I'm
Yeah.
talking in general.
Oh, in general.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I get Shady Lane and
okay,
motivation there, but
why
If we-
residential at
if we
all?
lose money in
Yeah.
residential.
It
Given the
depends
town
on how-
finances.
Right, and that's a great question, and one that's understandable. Low density residential definitely struggles to pay for itself. It's kind of a Ponzi scheme where you annex, you zone R1, and you have to zone more R1 and annex more to pay for what the infrastructure that you installed to have the previous annexation pay for itself. The higher the density, the more cost effective it is. At the same time, there's other rationale for residential annexations. So residential annexations, in the sense of there are people here who would like to be able to have their families continue to live here. And we don't have the housing infrastructure or the housing affordability or attainability that will allow for that, because of how expensive housing has become. And this goes back to other discussions that all of us have had before in housing costs. So, you get to this question of, well, how many people do we want to add? Well, if we want to add people and it doesn't pay for itself, why do we want to add anybody? Well, we risk the chance of becoming a community that is a bedroom community for people of means only.
Well,
And then you risk the viability of our own downtown. And so there's impacts on a whole host of things that people expect. And also there's components of the comprehensive plan that we all have hope, we all have aspirations to achieve, but can't because our population doesn't quite hit it. So we have the desire to have a doctor, or the desire to have a recreation center, or the desire to have whatever other municipal services that we just don't quite have enough people. We even stand the risk of, if we become a community that is strictly low density residential, high income, and not a lot of kids, losing our schools. We could have the school district say, you know what, there's not enough people here. And then I guess a final thought on that before I just talk too much on this, would be, it's kind of a sustainability question. Like right now, because we don't have enough services, we have to drive outside of Lyons to go purchase the things that we want to purchase. And that's money that could have stayed in our own tax base. It's gone. So, additional residences do help contribute to the overall well-being of the economy.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm
Yeah.
all for increasing density, we've had that discussion a bunch, it's just at the cost of annexation, I think. And this is where, show me the math at some point, what does it cost to get this thing done?
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense.
one thing I always, I don't know if you have what you think now in some states, but used to be the rules on for every dollar single family home put into the economy, they would use $1.50 in services. So you had to, so this is still what they use.
I don't know if that's still the number,
But
that's cost.
yeah, that's why you make it up with sales taxes and other types. That's why you bring it up during that when we had that hotel public hearing, but that's why lodging taxes are important. That's why that's how you make, that's how you make up the difference in some of your costs. But yeah, low density, single family.
Okay, let's, can we
Keep
move
going.
on?
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, the Tebow parcel. So this is at the intersection of US 36 and Highway 66. We've had the ownership express interest in annexation. And haven't heard anything in a few months. But we did have an initial meeting and we'll see if anything comes of this. And it would meet the 1/6 nexus. The Lucanen parcel. So, large parcel of land, 90 acres of land. Central portion of which is floodway along the St. Vrain. But there's other portions along this lower area that are in the 100-year floodplain. And there's opportunities here for a host of different things because of the diversity of this landscape. One idea with this one that the Lucanans have talked about is potentially a campground here along the river. And it would, touch our proposed St. Vrain Trail, at least on one side. Maybe even have one alternative of the St. Vrain Trail would even potentially go through their property. This is on the lower end. There's potential for commercial along US 36 in this area. And then potential for mixed use residential in this Stoneyard area. So they have expressed interest in annexation. The Boone parcel, one that's been mentioned before, this is 50 acres of land that is on the north end of Fifth Avenue. A host of opportunities could be seen here as well. The Gruber neighborhood. So this is a type of annexation that, because it's multiple different properties, it would need that 50% of voters within owning 50% of the land within an area. And the reason, as far as I know, why they would be interested in annexing is sewer provision. So we'll see what comes of that.
Do they have a right to get to the sewer, even if they're still in the county, if sewer is like within a certain distance? Because someone had brought that up before, that that's not a card we necessarily get to play all the time.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
So if there is someone wants a connection within 600 feet, we have to provide it.
We have to provide
But
it.
we can say we want you to annex in return. Because we have a code that says we don't provide that service unless you're in.
Okay, so we do.
Yeah,
Good
it's
point.
kind of a give
Right.
and take.
Right.
In this case, they are asking about our municipal water. Gruber is on their, a well. Yeah.
So they're on a well.
And so they are wanting to know what it would take to connect to our water, which would need an annexation.
The Connor parcel, this is another landowner who has come to town hall on a couple of occasions to talk about potentially annexing. A good portion of this parcel is mountainous and not super interesting to us for annexation. And the existing 7,500 square foot house is not really of interest to us to annex. Because it doesn't exactly meet that threshold of being something that would financially be viable for the town. However, the owner has stated an interest in potentially other types of development here, including and not limited to knocking down the house and building something denser. So we'll see what happens. But they've come and spoken to us a couple of times. This gets into other rationale as to why or why not annex that I'll talk about on the last slide. The Calvin parcel at Steamboat Valley in Vasquez, and is one that I think has a pretty historic precedence here with wanting to be annexed by the town. I haven't spoken to the owners, but I think this has been something that's come before the Board of Trustees before.
It just recently sold, so I don't know if the owners would-
Yeah, the previous guy came before the PCDC, but he
Okay.
wanted the town to pay for a sewer connection. And we said no,
Yeah.
and then we never heard from him again. Then he decided to go live somewhere else and he sold it.
He did.
Yeah.
Lions Paw parcels. So Director Kaplan and I had a site meeting with the owners of this property. This is Bone Park over here in the dog park. a few months ago, and at that time, they had expressed interest in potentially annexing. And again, you know, we wouldn't be interested in their one house. This would be something that would have to be an enticing proposal.
So they would have well water too, and then people don't, yeah, and that's how they, okay, and a septic tank. And that's how, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like the same thing with like the Calvin parcel and the Connor parcel, and we're not on.
So this is an intriguing one. This is owned by the Van Courts. It's entirely surrounded by the town of Lyons. And so we have a right to annex this without their approval if we so deem, because it's an enclave. So something to think about as far as cleaning up town boundaries. It's not by necessity that we have to, it could remain in the county, but certainly something that the town could entertain. There's another example of that, the McConnell parcel near Stone Canyon and Highway 36 that has the town on both sides of it. Across the street, US 36 here is not a part of the town's boundaries, but
I got a question on the enclaves. If we did decide to annex them, does the owner have any control over what the zoning would be? Or do we have control over that as well?
it's a great question. I would think that that would be under our control because it would be a PCDC question to answer. Because
So-
we're forcing the annexation, so I suppose we could dictate what the zoning would be as well.
Well, like, so the McConnell one, you know, we could zone commercial, right? That would massively increase their property taxes if we did it. The previous one's already got a house on it, it's residential, so I don't know why we'd zone it commercial.
Yeah.
It
That'd
is a
be-
business as well.
It's a business as well, so we could, because we need more commercial property,
Oh, yeah.
more than, well, we need residential. Okay, yeah.
And those are the ones that we're aware of at this time. So that's the end of annexations that were potential annexations that could be on the radar. So this last slide, to annex or not to annex. Why annex? The need for more residents, maybe. The need for more businesses, need for better amenities, need for safer community. That gets into the wildland urban interface. That's where that safer comes in. We can potentially create buffer zones by annexations. Also provide better utility services. So if you go back to, say, the honor, or actually the blue annexation, one rationale for annexing this property would be to install a new water tank in this northwestern corner here because the elevation is so high, and that would be great for water pressure for the upper neighborhoods of Lyons, because there's several parts of Lyons that are above the blue line elevation of 5,450 feet. And also just help to do be redundant in our water line services, so it's not just a single in and a single out line. And then
So
also
would you recommend that the town takes on the cost of that, or the Boons take on that cost?
take on the cost of the water?
Yeah,
That's a great question. I would think that I suppose it would depend on what form of annexation this.
Yeah.
We foresee this as. If we're only seeing it as, oh, we want to annex this because it will help us with water pressure and water redundancy, and it will help us with wildland urban interface firefighting, or like a trail system up here, then that's obviously our own desire and something we would have to pay for. But if we end up building this, or whoever the eventual owner is, because this is for sale right now for $5.5 million. You know, that could be something that we could work out with the developer potentially, because they would need water, and this elevation up here is above our blue line.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm definitely not in favor of upping the profitability for the developer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the game plan here. Okay, yeah.
Yep, and so like if that could definitely be a part of the development is, hey, you want to build however many new residences in here, and this is all above the blue line, so here's what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to be careful not to get out over our skis here and talk about things that haven't happened yet or been applied for yet.
true.
So, sorry.
Nope, great point. Okay, squaring off boundaries or annexing enclaves, just to make the town boundary make more sense. We've all seen how the town boundary has some really kind of squirrely, different geometric patterns to it. And it's not the most efficient provision of services design. So, a lot of times jurisdictions will use that as a basis for deciding, well, this would be a great place for us to contemplate annexation. Why not annex? We don't want to annex low density residential development proposals because they don't pay for themselves and it doesn't help with affordability of town land, which is a key goal. The proposal is potentially on sensitive lands. There's lands around us that we definitely have no interest in annexing because of whatever cultural features, biological features, theological features. Proposal would potentially force lines to provide services it doesn't want to have to provide. So we don't want to have to provide water at 6,000 feet elevation. If someone comes to us and their land proposal is like that, there's a host of other rationale there. Foremost, because of our own regulation, our own Lions Municipal Code, voters have to vote on this unless it's owned by the town. So it's turned down by the voters, then there's no annexation. Unless it's under 5 acres or under 10 acres of each quarter.
For that proposal on sensitive lands. Wouldn't it be possible that there'd be a parcel that would have some sensitive lands, that we'd actually want to protect, like maybe it meshes with our ecological goals, and there'd also be room for development, so couldn't that make it a favorable parcel?
Oh, yeah, and that's a great point. Thanks, Commissioner Graham. So if you look at that annexation or IGA map, I should say, with Boulder County. So here is the Lucanen property. And this orange hash area are sensitive lands. So there's portions of the Lucanen property that we wouldn't want to have development transpire upon. And there's other areas that we could determine are sensitive. This goes, this is what was determined by Boulder County in 2012. But yeah, fair point.
Question, if I'm a developer, is there an advantage to developing within the town, the same property, whether it's Boulder County versus Town Alliance?
Is there advantage to develop here instead of?
I'm trying to get at the motivation of individuals wanting to sell their properties. Of course, they're gonna monetize that.
Right.
Make,
Right.
But from a developer standpoint, they can go and buy these properties right now
Right.
and start.
David, it's the municipal utilities. To be able to be on municipal sewer and water instead of having to haul your water.
Okay, so it's a utility.
It's mostly utilities, but it's also the property owners are gonna have much lower taxes if they're in the town limits from a fire insurance perspective. Our rating in town is much different than the county.
But the taxes are higher in town.
Interesting.
Just by our few little mills we have. But you're also then getting, it's not really from the developer's perspective, more from the homeowners. Like right now, you get services like your access to parking and recreation programs and there's other things.
Yeah,
Will the county even zone R2 or R3? Does the county, they're not in that business,
No,
are they?
They're
No,
not.
they allow one home per 35
5 acres. I think that's the big reason.
And
Zoning
no
more homes for 35
subdivision
acres.
less than that.
When you say low density, is that R1 or is that 1 through 35 or?
Low density for us is R1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're-
for the county, it's
But
For the
21.
county, yeah. For the county, it's entirely different. Yeah.
okay.
That's one of the reasons the Lucanans are interested in annexing. Is currently that 96 acres is zoned industrial. So they are paying industrial valuations on all 96 acres, when even over half of it's in a floodplain. So and they can't subdivide in the county right now and get what they need. So if they were to annex into town, they would be able to subdivide into floodplain, parks, open space, a little commercial, a little industrial. You know, they could have much more flexibility. That's why they're interested. They're also very
That makes a lot of
interested in getting
sense.
water.
Yeah, that could be really good.
As it stands now, the Lutheran property in Boulder County could, because of that rule, could be subdivided into two properties.
It would be 2 homes
Yeah.
That's great.
on the whole thing. That's all they can do in the county.
Yeah.
So there's the zoning component, and then there's also the flexibility of our zoning, where we can have a whole host of different opportunities in zoning. As well as our process, I think the Boulder County process
They have to start.
takes a long time, and our process is relatively benign compared to Boulder County's process. And then last, why not annex the proposal, whatever proposal it is Portlanders. So, you know, it's like, well, yeah, we could annex that if we have this flagpole annexation that comes out a mile to where your property is. But is that really what we want to do? We want to encourage that. It depends. So, yeah. Any questions from anybody? No? Okay. Great.
Let's talk about the Martin person.
Martin parcel. So the Martin parcel, this is very short. Here's the location. You can see it here. The town of Lyons. It is 8.79 acres, so it's over that 5 acre threshold that has to go before a vote of the people, but because it's owned by the town, there's an exemption.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it does not have to go before.
Okay. That makes it easy.
Makes it very easy. Yeah. It was a deed restricted buyout property. That's how the transaction came about between Boulder County and the town of Lyons. It's formerly platted 2 lots from the 1909 what we call Meadow Park Fruit Farm subdivision. Lots 1 and 2 of block 1.
So as a deed restricted buyout, for those who are new, that means there cannot be a structure on it ever again, other than potentially a public restroom or other kind of outdoor amenities that are very, very low impact. So this is,
They don't have walls.
they can't have walls. Like you could maybe have a gazebo, but it would have to be elevated. There's those things, but very, very limited on if anything could ever happen there other than just recreation and outdoor.
So the zoning the proposed zoning will be parks and open space. The PCDC will decide that. And the dates. So the proposed dates are the PCDC meeting 2 weeks from now. Will be a decision on recommending this annexation to the Board of Trustees and also deciding upon the zoning.
Okay. Let's go ahead and finish.
And then the Board of Trustees has 2 hearings. One will be on the 5th of June, and one will be on the 19th of June. To make the final decision on whether or not we want to annex this. So, of course, you don't have to annex it. Why 2?
Is it ordinance or a resolution?
It's only 1 reading. There's 2 readings, 1 public hearing
2 readings.
at the second reading.
Okay. I apologize. So the dates are the same though.
Yeah, so the
Yeah,
first
so the
reading would be
second
on the
reading would be
5th.
The public hearing.
You should say reading, not.
Reading, not hearing on the 5th.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, so, yeah, we don't necessarily have to annex this, and the question is, why do we want to annex it? It's owned by the town now, we're not planning on building anything there. And that's a question we'll have to decide, like, why do we want to annex this? You know, one response I could think of is, Because we get to be the decision-making body on its land use because it's not within Boulder County's jurisdiction any longer. So that helps us. Even though we own the parcel, anything we want to do with it has to go through a Boulder County land use process. That's one. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I think Commissioner Cawthorn had a question a little bit ago. I saw you trying to poke your.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mostly just had a question about, you said the terms with that deed.
Well, that would be FEMA, right?
Yeah, like where, 'cause like, those are pretty set terms. I was just curious.
FEMA.
If it's a file, it depends on what, who owns, who deeded them to us,
Right.
they have slightly different restrictions, but we have a whole document, if you're not familiar with it, called the Dr. Bob program, that stands for deed restricted buyout properties. It identifies all the 29 different parcels we inherited after the flood and proposed uses on all of them. And so this was identified as potentially a trail access to get to Road 69, to get out to the higher trail system, since Highway 7 didn't have a very good shoulder at that time. And other than that, it's really what the people have expressed during the comp plan and other meetings has been, they'd like to keep an area more natural than all of our groomed parks. You know, a place that the community can just go out, you know, hang out, play in the woods. But the neighbors next to it have some concerns about that, of course, and it's always been just a single family residence. So kind of it's a great document. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, it gives you the guidelines for the.
So Commissioner Scott has a question and then Chair Drysdale.
Okay, so this would have been, if they had a well water source for the property.
Yes.
Will the town maintain it, keep it, want to use it, or?
I think Boulder County kept the rights to the water when it was transferred over. It doesn't have any water in it.
Okay, well, we've got the rights, but we.
No, we don't have the rights.
Oh, Boulder County kept the
I
rights
think they,
for themselves. Oh, okay. And because it is Clay Metro, I don't need them. Sewer or anything. There's probably a septic tank somewhere on the property too. So.
I think that all got
Yeah.
cleaned up.
Oh, that got removed. Okay, okay.
It's just a piece of land, and there's 26 more in Apple Valley if you're interested.
Okay.
That they're willing to give us to take care of, so they don't have to, there's nothing.
I have a question. So do they just like remove us? I mean, I've never lived in a house with a septic tank. They can just dig it out.
Yeah, they.
Yeah.
I can
Okay.
also just fill it.
Yeah, okay. If
With
you
your-
live on property with septic tank, I've never, is that something like you have to like replace like a roof, like every so many
Yeah,
years?
that's not of the bounds of this conversation, but yeah, I'm sure there are several people who can fill you in on the ins and outs.
Okay, yeah.
Chair Drysdale?
Yeah, David, could you address what appears to be pathway of some kind of something going through the middle? There's a line going through the middle of the map. Could you speak to the issues that may be surrounding traversing the property?
Yeah,
And, you know, what some of the constraints may be there.
yeah. Hold on, let me just share a different screen. So that we can make that better. Okay, so, you can see it pretty distinctly. This is the Martin parcel approximately, right here. And there is a social trail that goes through it, one of my favorites. And it connects with County Road 69 here. So, as of right now, this is actually closed because of mitigation work that's going on for fire. But the plan is that this will be continued as a social trail at this time. There are plans, there is an existing plan in Dr. Bach plan of a more formal trail through here. It was even mentioned in the Dr. Bach plan that this would be a boardwalk trail, and it was a loop. But whether or not that'll ever be realized, I don't know. At this time, it's anticipated we'll have our social trail through here. There is there's been some challenges with the property owner to the south. As far as trespassing goes, because the property boundary is like this, or my hand squares off right here. So the ideal future for this social trail and potentially an access for vehicles, like town maintenance vehicles, or fire, would be County Road 69 on the platted right of way, which still exists, all the way to the river. And then we could even add a gate. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go about this. I've talked with the county road department about, as well as with the planner, about potentially annexing this little segment of County Road 69 to provide better access so we don't trespass on the Darcy's parcel. And so that is a potential future annexation. It's not happening at this time. We'd annex this little segment of right of way.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Parks and Rec has been consulted on this, or is it just through the comp plan that we know that this is something that's desired?
Has our Parks Department? Oh, our Parks Department is involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave Cosgrove.
No, I mean, the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Oh, Parks and Recreation Commission. That I don't know.
I think, yeah,
Because
I
they were
believe
just-
so. We've been talking about this. We've been talking about this for years now.
Yeah, well, I imagine this came up in the comp plan.
Yeah.
But even before then. Yeah, before that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's not like we need to consult them again officially to make sure that they're on board with it, okay. We give them the good news, and like they jump up and down and go, yay.
Yes. And
We'll figure out
a bunch of,
nothing changes.
and a bunch of former trustees also jump up and down.
Oh, cool.
But I would say that I've had some people, former trustees and other people who were involved in the Dr. Bob plan that would really like us to honor that plan because a lot of work did go into it. So it's probably something that we will want to dust off.
That's a great suggestion. It's been a long time.
Who's mandated that?
Who's,
Yeah, who would be dusting off this plan? Is that?
we
it?
all would,
We all would,
yeah.
PCDC and DOT.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. We should, if you haven't read it lately, you
Not
should,
read it.
yeah.
And if you want to just
Absolutely.
read the first part and skip to the Martin parcel, you can.
You can do that.
You don't
There
have to
won't
read
be a quiz.
I imagine some of the town would. Yes.
So, any other questions for Planner Kim?
I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
And tell me if I'm getting ahead of myself. Is there some summary of the fiscal impact of this that will be presented?
That's a portion of that. I think that's a portion of the required annexation documents.
So we'll see that.
Yeah, and right now, as it stands, not a heck of a lot of impact because we're not really paying for anything other than a change of jurisdiction. But there could be financial impact if we do move forward with the Dr. Bach claim. Because it's not going to be generating revenue. Yeah.
Commissioner Coppin?
So I'm in the Dr. Bob. It looks like the only parking plan for this is like in Bond Park where that's ions away from this. And I know that there's already like parking up Fifth. So I guess I just wonder if that's something that we'll dive into a little bit more because that's already a kind of sketchy place to cross the road, even though we have that there. It's just that labyrinth area, just and a lot of weird parking stuff. So I'm just curious.
You know, being that it's kind of an informal recreation area that will be annexed, I don't think parking is a consideration in this annexation. Because we're not encouraging it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think it needs to be part of it. I'm just curious as a greater kind of conversation, what that might look like. But if we're not.
No, you can bring it up under
Yeah.
your considerations for sure, but the intent was we were trying not to draw a lot of people to it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just trying to come up with a safe passageway over the 69. So bicyclists, like a lot of them already know about it. And really, other than that, the local families are up against the river, as you can see. The map in the document doesn't match what people are doing naturally.
Yeah,
And so, doesn't necessarily mean it, and the neighbors would actually prefer it not be what is in Dr. Bob. They don't want them up that close to their fence line. So there's things we can work on after if you decide to annex it.
Any other questions for Planner Kemet? Thank you very much.
Sure.
I appreciate all the effort. And I want to thank every single commissioner on the PCDC and the chair for all of the work that you do. I was on the PCDC before I was a trustee, and I know it can be a lot. And I appreciate everybody's thoughtfulness and dedication and hard work. So thank you very much.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I'd like to echo that as well. From a staff perspective, it's a great group to work with. We appreciate all of your volunteer hours. We're hoping to maybe host our next joint meeting. We're supposed to do it twice a year. So we are hoping maybe October, and then we could do like a 1-year review of the comp plan.
Oh,
Because we're
great.
supposed to do that annually too.
That's great.
So maybe that could be our agenda item for our next joint meeting. If that sounds reasonable to everybody.
So
Keep us
October,
on track. We need to.
Yeah.
so October, does that mean a Halloween party?
Just
Dress up.
costumes just for you. Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn this meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Right, candy corn, trustee, I sent out.